Right now, your next electricity bill, your kid's math homework, and even the survival rate of a cancer patient are all being dictated by, well, a handful of oil tankers idling off the coast of Oman.
Yeah, I know it sounds like a massive stretch, but it's really the reality we're in right now.
It really is. Today we are looking at the April 18, 2026 edition of the Morning Briefing, and our mission for this deep dive is to explore this violent planetary scale collision happening right now between the physical world and the global AI boom.
Right, because we are going to map out how international shipping choke points and local power grids are fundamentally rewiring everything. I mean, from your daily tech cost to the basic security of your home network.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, because I think we've been totally conditioned to think of the cloud as, something ethereal.
Oh, absolutely. We picture this invisible software just sort of floating above us in the ether, but the cloud is at its core an ocean of physical hardware.
Right.
It's servers, it's thousands of miles of copper wire, replacement GPUs, heavy networking gear, and all of that physical material has to be manufactured, put on a boat, and shipped across a very fragile, very physical map.
So the cloud is actually just a bunch of metal on boats.
Basically, yeah. And right now, that physical map is under severe stress. The briefing highlights that the Strait of Hormuz is finally reopening. Iran pulled back those sea mines near Bandar Abbas, and the US and UK are running naval escorts to get tankers through.
Which is a huge deal.
It is. 2 loaded crude carriers just cleared it, which is a start, but there is this staggering backlog. More than 40 tankers are just, sitting off the Omani coast waiting their turn.
And that backlog is where the physical world really starts taxing the digital one, right?
Exactly. Because of that bottleneck, war risk insurance for that specific maritime route has skyrocketed. It's at roughly 5 times its pre-crisis levels.
Wow. 5 times.
Yeah, and a jump like that, sure, it delays Europe's jet fuel by weeks, but it also alters the fundamental economics of moving enterprise tech hardware across the globe.
Okay, wait, let me push back on that for a second. Because if you are a software CEO sitting in a sleek office in Silicon Valley or, an IT manager in Chicago, you aren't buying jet fuel.
Right.
You aren't chartering cargo ships. So how does a maritime insurance premium off the coast of Oman actually hit your desk?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it hits your desk through something called a SKU, a stock keeping unit.
Right.
Basically, the menu pricing you look at when you rent computing power from a major cloud provider. Because those cloud providers are constantly replacing and upgrading physical server racks.
I see.
Right, so when the cost to ship a 2,000-pound rack of silicon across the ocean quintuples, the cloud providers don't just, eat that loss.
Yeah.
Analysts are already warning that we should expect quiet, across-the-board repricing on cloud capacity SKUs this summer.
Wow, so you're directly paying for that shipping delay.
You are. If your company relies on GPU-heavy cloud tiers, especially data centers located in Europe, your monthly bill is going up simply because a geographical choke point thousands of miles away is jammed.
That makes so much sense. The shipping lane dictates the server cost. And, we are seeing this collision between physical geography and digital connectivity play out in active conflict zones, too.
We really are.
Like Lebanon. There's a fragile 10-day Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire holding right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the briefing points out that telecom operators are using this narrow window to rush into southern villages and repair mobile fiber.
Yeah, and it perfectly illustrates how connectivity is no longer a luxury. It is base-level survival infrastructure.
Right. They aren't laying fiber to build a startup hub.
Exactly. They are scrambling to restore basic 4G networks and SMS capabilities because in a crisis, a simple text message is what allows a displaced family to coordinate aid, avoid danger zones, find missing relatives.
So a military ceasefire acts as a literal infrastructure window.
Yes. A window to stitch the network back together before the physical reality shatters it again. And we're seeing a very different kind of adaptation in Ukraine.
Right. Russia has been pounding Ukraine's western power grids, hitting infrastructure in Lviv, Ternopil, and Ivano-Frankivsk.
And entire regions are facing up to 12-hour rolling blackouts. And when that main grid fails, it's local schools and clinics that lose their continuity first. You can only run a hospital wing on diesel generators for so long.
Which forces a huge technological pivot, because every time a major substation gets destroyed, Ukrainian edtech platforms and telehealth providers get pushed further onto Starlink and resilient mesh networks.
Right.
But let's clarify that for a moment. I think most people know Starlink is satellite internet, but what exactly is a mesh network in this context?
Okay, so think of a traditional internet connection, like a single large water pipe coming into your house. If that pipe breaks, you lose water.
Yeah.
A mesh network is more like a neighborhood bucket brigade. Instead of relying on one central tower or pipe, every individual device, a phone, a specialized router, a laptop, acts as a node. They all connect directly to one another.
Oh, so if one node goes down because a building loses power?
The data simply routes around it. It just hops from device to device until it finds an active connection to the broader internet. Ukraine is turning into this real-time, global case study in how to build civil resilience when the physical world fails.
And as those networks route around the physical damage, the diplomatic chess pieces are moving just as fast. President Zelensky is heading to Beijing next month to pressure Moscow through China.
Which is a major development.
Huge. And to be clear to you listening, we are just tracking the reporting here. We remain completely objective on the geopolitics, but you can see how fast the pieces, the power grids, the shipping lanes, the diplomatic pressure are all shifting at once.
And that global scramble for hardware naturally brings us to a domestic scramble.
Yeah.
Because once you get those physical chips off the boats and into a data center here at home, you run into the next profound bottleneck.
The battle for the electricity to run them. The plumber's bill for the AI boom.
Exactly. Deloitte and the Edison Electric Institute just released an analysis. They are projecting $1.4 trillion in U.S. utility spending on AI-related infrastructure by 2030.
Let that sink in for a second. Trillion. With a T. That is more than the entire U.S. interstate highway system costs to build, even when you adjust for inflation.
It's staggering. And that money is primarily for transmission lines, substations, and new power generation. Because an AI data center doesn't just need a little more power.
Yeah.
It requires this constant, uninterrupted torrent of electricity for cooling systems and continuous processing.
Right.
What's fascinating here is the brewing battle over who actually foots that bill. Right now, 3 Midwestern utilities have filed rate cases trying to push those infrastructure costs onto industrial and commercial customers.
Aiming to shield residential households from the spike.
All right. Right.
But wait, how does that work in practice? Because utilities are regulated monopolies in most places. They can't just arbitrarily decide the factory down the street pays double, so my home electricity bill stays flat, can they?
Well, that is exactly what state public utility commissions are fighting over right now. Regulators are trying to build a financial firewall. Their argument is that everyday households shouldn't bear the cost of upgrading the grid just so tech giants can train their next-generation language models.
That makes sense.
But shifting that burden to commercial customers creates its own massive ripple effects, which we will get to in a moment.
It's the ultimate policy fight.
Yeah.
And the bottleneck isn't just the electricity. I mean, it's the chips themselves. I'm looking at this company called FluidStack.
Oh, yeah.
They just raised a $1 billion Series C round, led by General Catalyst and NVIDIA. Valuation is at $8.5 billion. And their entire business model is creating an on-demand marketplace for idle GPU clusters.
Yeah.
Specifically, the high-end H200 and B200 chips.
Yeah. If a university or research lab or a major enterprise buys a massive cluster of these chips, they rarely run them at 100% capacity around the clock.
Right, there's downtime.
So FluidStack lets them list that idle compute power. Then, a smaller AI lab can buy flexible bursts of training capacity without having to sign a multi-million-dollar long-term contract.
So FluidStack is essentially acting like Airbnb for idle supercomputers.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's fractional ownership of a commercial jet network. You don't need to buy the entire 747. You just rent the engine thrust for the 3 hours you actually need to fly.
But here is my concern, especially looking at TSMC. The giant Taiwanese chip manufacturer just released their earnings. Revenue was up 42% year over year.
Massive numbers.
Yeah, and AI chips now make up over 60% of their total wafer starts. But the boom is perilously narrow. Just 5 hyperscaler customers are driving the vast majority of that AI revenue.
Right.
So tell me this, are we building a $1.4 trillion highway system across the country just so 5 tech bro transport trucks can use it?
That fragility is the exact tension keeping economists awake at night right now. TSMC's own CFO issued a warning on their earnings call that they need to diversify their customer mix by 2027.
Because if they don't,
Demand concentration like that is systemic risk. If just one of those 5 massive hyperscalers decides they've overbuilt and pulls back on their capital expenditures, the whip-crack effect would be devastating.
It hits the semiconductor supply chain instantly.
Instantly. And it leaves those local utilities holding the bag on multi-billion-dollar substation upgrades with absolutely no one to pay for them.
Wow. So we have $1 trillion in physical infrastructure being deployed, driven by a handful of companies, all while the utilities try to figure out who pays, which naturally shifts our focus to the people caught in the middle.
The humans trying to manage it all.
Right. How is society scrambling to govern this? And right now, the front line of that scramble seems to be our education system.
Absolutely. The regulatory landscape is furiously trying to catch up to the hardware. The U.S. Department of Education just published their final rule governing any AI tools funded under Title IV.
And schools only have a 180-day countdown to comply with this.
Yeah, right. They must publish annual public inventories of every AI system they use, train faculty on how to disclose that usage, and enforce strict student data protection addendums with vendors.
It sounds like a bureaucratic mountain.
It is, and it's happening at the state level, too. California's governor just signed Executive Order N526, mandating a 90-day transparency notice for all state agency AI tools.
And fast-tracking security reviews for high-risk deployments in places like public safety and education.
Yeah.
But here is the kicker. At the exact same time, 16 states, including Utah, Florida, and California, have K-12 screen time bills in motion.
Right.
State legislatures are actually mandating unplugged instructional minutes to force kids off their devices.
Meanwhile, the COSN 2026 report, which is a major survey of school superintendents and CTOs across 42 states, just ranked AI literacy as the #1 hurdle for districts.
It beat out cybersecurity.
It did. Yet 68% of district leaders admit their AI literacy efforts are completely ad hoc. Only 22% have a formal curriculum.
So what does this all mean? Look at the sheer absurdity of this situation for a second. We are legally mandating that public schools provide high-level AI literacy, but simultaneously passing state laws to ban screen time in the classroom.
Yeah.
How is a teacher supposed to navigate that friction? Welcome to class, kids. Today we're learning complex machine learning prompts. Now, please close your laptops and put them in your backpacks.
It's a profound disconnect between the halls of the state house and the reality of the classroom. But take that a step further and connect it to the utility grids we just discussed.
Okay.
Public schools are not just educational centers. They are massive, highly predictable electricity consumers. They run sprawling HVAC systems, cafeterias, stadium lights.
Oh, wow. The commercial rate hikes.
Precisely. Remember those Midwestern utilities trying to shift the $1.4 trillion AI infrastructure costs away from residential homes and onto commercial customers?
Yes, to build the financial firewall.
Well, schools fall into that commercial bucket. This creates a deeply ironic closed-loop paradox. The local school district is fighting tech companies for electricity just to run their air conditioning.
Right.
When the tech company's data center causes the commercial electricity rate to spike, the school's facility budget gets squeezed. With less money, the school is then legally forced to buy compliance software from those exact same tech companies to manage the state's AI literacy mandates.
All while the state legislature is telling the teachers to ban the laptops required to use the software.
Exactly.
It is a literal resource war disguised as an education policy debate. It highlights a much deeper problem here. We are trying to regulate this technology through slow, bureaucratic machinery, but the AI is evolving faster than our tests can even measure.
Yeah, and the basic network infrastructure it relies on is actively under attack at the exact same time.
Yes. The speed of the frontier models is creating what researchers call a measurement crisis, right?
Yeah.
You can't measure progress, you can't govern it.
Exactly. Take humanity's last exam. This was a closed universe benchmark test designed by researchers in late 2024. The questions were so exceptionally difficult and esoteric that experts assumed no AI model would crack a 20% score for years.
And according to the briefing, Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.7 and Google's Gemini 3 Ultra both just hit 62% on it.
It's incredible.
The hardest test we could devise was saturated almost immediately.
Which raises an important question. How do we evaluate a system that breaks the yardstick we use to measure it? Frontier AI labs are moving so fast, they're fundamentally changing how they communicate with the public, too.
Right, like OpenAI just acquired TBPN.
Yeah, The Bernie and Patrick Network, which is a major developer podcast network, they bought it for $120 million. Their goal is to build an internal voice content group.
So I have to ask the cynical question here. Is OpenAI buying a podcast network just a modern tech bro version of a corporation buying a printing press to control the narrative?
Yeah.
You own the media, you control the criticism.
It undeniably sparks intense debates about editorial independence. Critics see a massive red flag when a tech giant buys the platform that is supposed to be objectively reviewing its products.
There.
But supporters argue that the technology has become so complex that traditional media simply lacks the technical depth to explain it to developers, making an in-house network the next logical step.
Regardless of the motive, it proves these AI labs are consolidating immense cultural and informational influence.
Absolutely.
And here's the terrifying contrast. While these models are passing humanity's last exam and buying up media networks, the foundational cybersecurity they sit on is rotting. We're building hyper-intelligent AI, but we are leaving the back door wide open on our home Wi-Fi routers.
We really are. The briefing lists an alarming number of cyber threats today. CISA just added 6 major vulnerabilities to their known exploited list,
including deep architectural flaws in Apache ActiveMQ and Windows MSMQ.
And we are also tracking the Interlock ransomware group. Cybersecurity agencies in the US and Canada released a joint advisory that Interlock is now dropping fake Microsoft Teams updates.
Okay, wait, how are they getting people to fall for that? I feel like we all know not to click suspicious links by now.
Because it isn't just a suspicious link. They are dropping a legitimate-looking, digitally signed installer. It bypasses basic antivirus protocols because the computer security system looks at the digital signature and thinks, okay, this is an official Microsoft update.
Oh, that's nasty.
Once inside, they are accelerating their encryption hits on healthcare networks, local governments, and, those very same K-12 districts we were just talking about.
The threat that really stood out to me involves a Russian state actor tracked as Bronze Butler. Mandiant and the NSA revealed that since 2023, this group has been quietly harvesting administrative session tokens from edge routers.
Yeah, across 14 countries.
What exactly is a session token, and why is this so dangerous?
Think of logging into a secure system, like going to an exclusive amusement park. Your username and password are the ID you show at the front gate. Once the guard verifies your ID, they stamp your hand.
Okay.
For the rest of the day, you don't need to show your ID again. You just show the hand stamp to get on the rides. That hand stamp is a session token.
I see.
Bronze Butler isn't trying to guess your complex password. They are exploiting unpatched firmware on simple small office and home routers to steal the digital hand stamp. Once they have it, they bypass all your login security completely.
So to a hacker, an unpatched edge router is essentially like finding the master key to a secure building just sitting on a park bench.
Yes.
We treat edge networking gear like office furniture.
Yeah.
It's just a blinking plastic box in the corner gathering dust.
Exactly. And the reality is we have to start treating edge routers as first-tier identity infrastructure. We need strict patching schedules, isolated administrative interfaces, and multi-factor authentication, not just for email, but on the management plane of the router itself.
Okay, before we get completely overwhelmed by ransomware, unpatched routers, and, geopolitical chess matches, let's look at what all this computing power is actually achieving. Let's pivot to the human element.
Please. It is crucial to remember why we are building this infrastructure in the first place.
Because amidst all the noise, there is a monumental, life-saving breakthrough today. Just scanning the broader trends briefly, the internet is heavily debating the U.S. Senate's FISA Section 702 vote, with intense lobbying from both civil liberties groups and national security voices.
All right.
And again, we are just tracking the legislative trend here for you, not taking a position on the surveillance debate itself.
Oh.
Also in sports, a late qualifier is making a surprise run in the Munich Open men's tennis final.
Nice.
Entertainment is dissecting the new Marvel Doomsday trailer, and there is a sweeping Honda recall for fuel pumps, causing stalling in recent Civics and CR-Vs. But the story that truly matters.
The clinical trial.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting. The New England Journal of Medicine just published the results of a 42,000 patient randomized trial. They tested a colonoscopy assist AI tool.
It is an AI that analyzes the video feed in real time to flag suspicious polyps for gastroenterologists.
And the results are stunning. When clinicians worked without the AI, they detected early-stage colorectal cancer at a 76% rate. When they used the AI assist, that detection rate jumped to 90%.
A 14% jump in early detection across 42,000 patients is a monumental shift in public health. The mechanism behind this is fascinating, too.
How does it work?
Well, a human doctor suffers from eye fatigue. By 4:00 p.m. on a Friday, after looking at screens all day, a small flat polyp can easily look like a natural shadow or a fold in the tissue.
Of course.
The AI does not experience fatigue. It analyzes the tissue at a pixel level, recognizing microscopic pattern variations that the human eye simply cannot process. And it does it with the exact same precision on the 100th patient as it did on the first.
And I want to emphasize this to you directly. This is not some theoretical pie-in-the-sky, 10 years in the future tech promise. The stakes here are absolute.
Right.
The survival rate for early-stage colorectal cancer is roughly 90%.
Right.
If that polyp gets missed and develops into late-stage cancer, the survival rate plummets to closer to 15%. This pixel-level pattern recognition is saving lives today, right now.
It really grounds everything we have discussed. I mean, we've traced multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure costs, the frantic scramble to fund and train our schools, and the geopolitical tension in global shipping lanes just to move these physical servers.
It's a lot of friction.
It is easy to look at that chaos and wonder if the friction is worth it. But this clinical trial is the ultimate tangible payoff of the AI boom. Real clinicians saving real lives at a scale that fundamentally alters human health outcomes.
It is an incredible note to wrap up on. We've covered a vast amount of ground today. We started with the physical shipping lanes of the Strait of Hormuz dictating our cloud computing costs and traced that to a $1.4 trillion rewiring of our domestic power grids.
Yeah.
We unpacked the closed-loop paradox of schools fighting for electricity while trying to navigate screen time bans and AI literacy laws. We looked at the tension between AI models saturating the hardest exams we can write, while our basic Wi-Fi routers sit exposed to session token theft.
And finally, we saw AI stepping into the operating room to cure human blind spots in cancer screenings.
It really proves how deeply interconnected these seemingly disparate headlines are.
They are entirely interconnected, and I think it leaves us with one crucial, lingering thought. If our AI models are already passing humanity's last exam and detecting cancer at the pixel level better than a human doctor, while our basic physical and digital infrastructure, our power grids, our edge routers, our global shipping lanes are buckling under the strain, will the ultimate bottleneck for our future not be the intelligence of the technology itself, but the fragile, physical, human-built world it has to run on?
Wow. That is a question that is going to stick with me all day. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. We will catch you on the next one.